الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. كتاب العتق من كتاب or شرح the book of Bulugh-Al-Maram. The hadith and the emancipation, and we talked about the servitude in Islam, how Islam whenever he embraces society, they cleanse them gradually based on the foundation of the purity, fairness and justice. That's how Islam, when embraced the society of Arabia and then spread to all over the world, the servitude was an aspect that existed in all the society. However, it's not about to abolish servitude, but to remain the effect of the servitude, discrimination, racism, differences, absence of justice. Islam, even with the servitude existent as part of the structure of the society, had set the rules of the justice within that structure, and then dried out the sources of that nurture or provide or persist for the servitude to continue. He dried out all those channels to cut off the servitude, and it happened afterwards. However, this ahadith is from the time of the Prophet ﷺ in how to deal in such situation. فعن ابن عمر, and the servitude, one of the balance in Islam is to regard one's wealth. So part of one's wealth, it was people that they had. However, the people that they had is the wealth is in the money or the value of that person, but the dealing with that person is based on the aqidah of Islam. Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum, the most preferred among you and the most noble in the sight of Allah is the pious. Therefore, the dealing between them is dealt with the justice by an order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the guidance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. However, when it comes to the wealth part, the transaction is more like financial and economic aspect. Therefore, you have to establish the fairness also on those aspects. فإن this hadith of Ibn Umar رضي الله تعالى عنهما قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من أعتق شركا له في عبد فكان له مال يبلغ ثمن العبد قوم قيمة عدل فأعطى شركاءه حصصهم وعتق عليه العبد وإلا فقد عتق منه ما عتق. One of the great deeds at that time is to free a servant, So it happened, and we mentioned how the companion Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim, they did, and we mentioned that Abdurrahman ibn Auf, by means of a good deed, seeking the nearness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he had, freed 30,000 persons, 30,000 souls, buying and freeing. Abu Bakr, he was the foremost in such a thing by, freeing the servant to find their freedom of the servitude, like Bilal, Abu Huraira, Abu Fuhayra, Zenira, the Roman one, all of them, they were being freed by Abu Bakr. Now, in a case that a person is, under a partnership. So here in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, whoever who free a share that he has in a servant, فكان له مال يبلغ ثمن العبد قوم قيمة عدل فأعطى شركاءه حصصهم. If he has money, then he will free the servant, and he will see the value of this servant, and whatever his partner, their shares, he will pay it for them. Because you cannot force someone to give away his wealth. Then by justice here, when you're talking about one's possession, you have to pay them. قال فأعطى شركاءه حصصهم. Therefore, he'll give to the partner their shares. Now, قال وإلا فقد عتق منه ما عتق. Otherwise, if this person does not have money to pay the shuraka, the partner, then this servant, he will have the part of him is freed. And then it will have qanun. So he will be like, if he will be seeking how to free himself, he only will be paying for the remaining, because part of it was being given to him as a gift from one of the partners. ظاهر الحديث تبعيض العتق. So in this hadith we understand that the servitude can be the emancipation of a servant can be divided in shares, as we mentioned. That's why we said it needs to be regarded from two points of view. From the point of view of wealth, then it's going to be assimilated to a transaction like in economy. And from the point of view of a human being, servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is going to be equal, and the best among them is the righteous person. So this is nothing you have to do, because that was the structure of the society. That was the structure of the society when it has been, Islam introduced to it, so it cleansed it, as we have mentioned. The next hadith, so this is the mas'ala here, the big question: can a person have his freedom, part of his freedom? This hadith, yes, this hadith is proving such a thing. Other scholars, they said, yeah, no. They said, no, it's either he's going to be freed all at once or, not freed. But this hadith is showing the opposite. However, the next hadith gives us more insight. قال ولهما عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه وإلا قوم عليه واستسعي غير مشقوق عليه. Otherwise, he will be required, قال قوم عليه, so the value that he has remaining to free himself, استسعي عليه, he will work for it. He will work so he can pay it himself. And this becomes al-mukataba, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in Surah An-Nur. غير مشقوق عليه, and without being overburdened. And mashkuq alayhi, it has two meaning here, two interpretation, without being forced, because there is people, they don't want to be free, which is me like, because the freedom of the soul, nobody can enslave a soul. Everyone is free, their soul is free. But as being servant, they serve. That's what, the relation here. So if someone, he feel like being in this state, having his tranquility, his ibadah is going right, everything is fine, they don't want. They want to stay in servitude, especially in a family or person that he is righteous. Many of the servants that refused, especially of certain companion, because they become their own student. And then later on, because some of the companion, when the servant, they give them their itiq, is either, imminent to be executed, or they prefer to stay with them. Then by the death of the master, they become free right away. So most of them, or some of them, they had done such a thing, and then become, subhanallah, the imams of the ummah, as all of you know. So here, as-si'ayatu is the action of the person who has, shares that has been gifted to him by being freed. Then the other shares, he will try to work on it, and he's not obliged to do it. He's not obliged to do it. The other interpretation, he should not be overburdened, because if, for example, the third of his value is being gifted to him, so there's only 2/3. So the partner should not overburden him, because he already have part of him who is free, that it belongs to himself. So he has his time that he need to, that his own time. And that's one of the scholars, they meant or gave the interpretation of overburden. Al-istis'a'u, hadith al-Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, how can we understand or combine between these ahadith? How can we combine between the ahadith to say what is preferable for someone who wants to free a person? He will free this person and then he will pay the partners their shares, or to give part, what he can afford, and then have the servant himself to work for the rest. And working for the rest is also what we call al-kitabatu. قال والذين يبتغون الكتاب مما ملكت أيمانكم فكاتبوهم إن علمتم فيهم خيرا. Those who seek the writing and the book, or like al-kitabatu, it's a contract of freeing them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, if you know that they're good people, and here subhanAllah, the freedom at the time based on righteousness. So if this person is righteous and he's going to be an asset for the community, so go ahead and help them to free themselves. وَآتُوهُمْ, I mean, if someone, he does not have enough money, so the people who own them, he gave them money so they can, fulfill this contract. وَآتُوهُمْ مِنْ مَالِ اللَّهِ الَّذِي آتَاكُمْ. So here, قال وإلا فقد عتق منه ما تعتق. So it's either he going to be freed all at once, or to have part of him freed. So the first interpretation, or the first, let's say, wajh, aspect or case, قال معنى فقد عتق منه ما عتق أي بإعتاق مالك الحصة حصته وحصة شريكه يعتق بالسعاية فيعتق العبد بعد تسليم ما عليه. So it's either that he's going to give, gift his share, and then asking the servant to, and he will help him to work on bringing the remaining. And then when we bring the remaining, they will be paid for the partner and he will be free. غَيْرَ مَشْقُوقٍ عَلَيْهِ. So he was not obliged. They don't oblige him to go work hard and to see people who will help you to free yourself. However, the freeing, as we said, is one of the great deeds to do so. The second, perspective is أن المراد بالاستسعاء أن العبد يستمر في خدمة سيده. الاستسعاء here meaning that he'll continue to serve his master, and he will stay, servant on that part of the share that the master or the partner that they have. So this is the second interpretation. However, a good conclusion, as the author he introduced here, قال وإيضاح الجمع بين الأحاديث أن قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم لا شريك لله فيما إذا كان مالك الشخص غنيا فهو في حكم المالكين. If the person who has the share is a person who's wealthy, then by obligation, or like recommended, to free this person. That's a great action of deed, and he will give the partner the money. ويحمل حديث السعاية على ما إذا كان العبد قادرا عليه. However, if this person cannot, and the servant had the ability to work on the rest, then we apply the hadith of let him work and bring the remaining wealth or value, so he can pay the partner. ويحمل حديث وإلا فقد عتق منه ما عتق. And the last hadith is saying, otherwise he will be freed as much as what it has been, paid from his value. This is in case the one who gave away his share is poor and he does not have money to pay for the rest, and the servant himself, he does not have the ability to work on the rest. So these are the combining between all the hadith. The next hadith, قال لا يجزي ولد والده إلا أن يجده مملوكا فيشتريه فيعتقه. This is hadith, beautiful hadith. Is about, a child and a parent. He said here, a son or a child cannot ever repay his parents, ever. What owes them? Endless. What will be the great thing that a child can do for his parents and will be like repaying them. And it's impossible to repay one parents for all what they did for them. Unless this child finds them in slavery, then buy them and emancipates them. Because this is the greatest deed, to give someone their own freedom. Because the freedom in the society, in such society, it gives a lot of rights that people they do not have. I mean the servant that they do not have. So this is hadith that making what is a great deed for a child to his parents if they find them in servitude is to free them. Which the hadith, the next hadith, extend to every dhi rahm, every someone who has a kinship with them. قال whoever obtained قال من ملك ذا رحم محرم فهو حر. Anyone who has the mahram, he find them in servitude and he buy them, serve them, by having their ownership, they become free right away. If someone, for example, he find his parents, and as soon as he get the ownership, that father or mother or son or daughter, they become free right away. So whoever obtains possession of a relative who is next of kin, that person becomes free. So this is hadith. والحديث قال إنما كان عتقه جزاء لأبيه لأن العتق أفضل ما من به أحد على أحد. The عتق, the emancipation, is one of the greatest things that a person will make it or give it as a favor to someone. And the other hadith about the rahim, قال والحديث دليل على أن من ملك من بينه وبينه رحامة محرمة لنكاح فإنه يعتق. Whoever who has an ownership, that have kinship, close kinship, that becomes haram on them. Haram when it comes to marriage. قال حرمت عليكم أمهاتكم وبناتكم وعماتكم وخالاتكم وبنات الأخ. Those, all of them, and the opposite of them from the men, all of them is haram. Therefore, when it came to this case, they become, by the ownership of one of them, the rest they become free. This is the Sharia of Islam in such a thing. And here he mentioned the fathers and the grandfather and the children and nows and the brothers and the sisters and their nephews and nieces. All of them will be included in this hadith. The next hadith, we just read it, and inshallah we'll have a sharh of it next time. But the mas'ala here, قال وعن عمران ابن حسين أن رجلا أعتق 6 مماليك عند موته. And this is to see the balance between doing the good and also observing the rights of others. عن عمران أن رجلا أعتق 6 مماليك. A man who had no other property emancipated 6 of his servants at the time of his death. The Prophet ﷺ sent for them, and after dividing them into 3 groups, he cast lots among them, set 2 of them free and kept 4 in servitude, and spoke very harshly to the man who emancipated them. Why? Because when someone is dying, the estate that he has, the wealth he has, does not belong to him anymore. It belongs to the waratha. So if all his wealth was only this servant and he gave them all, so it's haram. Why? Because you see here, subhanAllah, what he wants to do a good deed. But here, he's violating the right of the inheritors. I mean, let the inheritors to give them, set them free, but not you. So the Prophet ﷺ, he only freed the 1/3 of them. Why? Because the 1/3 is al-wasi. Because from someone's estate you have the right to, to allocate the third of your wealth for the inheritance, whatever you want to do for it. Yeah, this is al-wasiyya, maximum third. قال من بعد وصية يوصي بها أو دين. So once it was inheritance, you deduct from it the debt, and after the debt, you deduct the wasiyah. How much the wasiyah? Third, maximum of the third. So that's what the Prophet ﷺ, he did. He gave the third as a wasiyah, and he kept for the inheritors the rest. Why? Because by doing that, he has violated the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why he talked to him harshly, as he said, قال وقال له قولا شديدا. We'll continue inshallah to study more this hadith inshallah ta'ala next time بإذن الله تعالى. جزاكم الله خيرا وبارك الله.